Good evening, all, and welcome to tonight's panel discussion, or town hall meeting, rather, being organized by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Post and Urban Development. Today, I have with me our Minister of Public Infrastructure, Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Sean K. Richards, the Director of Public Works, Mr. George Gilbert, Assistant Water Engineer at the Water Services Department, Mr. Ryan Phillip. And we are going to be joined later this evening via Zoom by the consultant from ADB, Mr. Martel Lee. Today, we are here to discuss or to bring to you an update as to what is happening in relation to public infrastructure in St. Kitts and the Nevis, particularly St. Kitts. The ministry, of course, is cognizant of the fact that public infrastructure will boost our economy and improve safety. Public infrastructure supports much of our daily lives. It is critical to the well-being, thus providing the means necessary for current and future generations to live rewarding lives. There are quite a number of projects that are currently being undertaken by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, and one such project is the rehabilitation of the island main road, and we are going to be giving you an update on that tonight. We want to say that that project could not have been possible without the support of Public Works and Water Services Department, and also the combined efforts of our stakeholders, such as the cable, flow, SCELEC, and you, of course, the general public. Indeed, as we continue to really change the landscape in St. Kitts and the Nevis, we continue to crave your patience as we work to complete these projects. Tonight, I am going to allow the Minister, of course, to give his opening remarks. And so I welcome you, sir, on this panel and ask you at this point in time to bring some opening remarks. Minister Richards.
Thank you to our chairperson, who is also the acting permanent secretary for the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, et al. And the et al. Would be, of course, the Post and Urban Development. I also want to say at this point in time a very special welcome to all persons who are listening to this virtual town hall meeting this evening. I have along with me our Acting Director of Public Works, Mr. George Gilbert. We have an Assistant Engineer within the Water Department, Mr. Ryan Phillip, and you would have heard from Mr. Lloyd that we have the consultant for ADB, Mr. Martel Lee, via Zoom. This meeting was actually scheduled for last evening in Sandy Point. However, with new developments pertaining to COVID-19, we had to postpone the meeting and bring it to you virtually this evening. We are therefore, however, expecting that persons would be able to call in, ask their questions, and share their concerns. Perhaps it has worked better for us from the point of view that the meeting was intended for more or less the residents of Sandy Point, but now persons at the national level will be able to call in and ask questions pertaining to public infrastructure that they may have. So again, I want to thank not only the panelists, but also our television viewers for partaking in this program this evening. As it pertains to Sandy Point, currently there has been quite a bit of work undertaken in terms of public infrastructure. I know what would come readily to mind from persons right now would of course be the resurfacing of the island main road, as Sandy Point is receiving quite a bit of work in preparation for the resurfacing. As it is currently, we have the cable in Sandy Point laying new fiber optics. The fiber optics which are being laid are in preparation for the cable to be able to offer a better and upgraded service, not just to the people of Sandy Point, but to the entire island of St. Kitts where the cable operates. It has been, of course, causing an inconvenience for persons, and there are different ways in which it is causing an inconvenience for persons at this point in time relative to the work that is being done. In the first instance, you would have seen a number of new sidewalks being erected within the Sandy Point community. Those sidewalks were, of course, erected so that pedestrians in particular would be able to use our roads, in particular the Island Main Road, in a much safer manner. Whether it is children attending schools during the course of the day, persons doing business back and forth with the bank, with the post office, attending to business at the Parks and Medical Facility, going to use one of the recreational facilities, or whatever it is persons are doing, those sidewalks have been put in to ensure a safer environment for persons as they traverse the streets in Sandy Point. Following on the sidewalks being erected, we saw the water department changing out the water mains in Sandy Point. We have had some asbestos pipes which have been utilized for more than 20 years now, and so a decision was taken to change those pipes. So in the first instance after the sidewalks, we saw the mountain side or the northern side of Sandy Point, the streets being dug for the new water lines to be laid. After that was completed, the cable, as I mentioned earlier, of course, came in to do their part of the work. Now let me go back to those water lines, because it wasn't only just a matter of putting in new water lines within the Sandy Point community, but you would have seen some secondary lines also being placed on both sides of the street. Those lines were placed in an effort to avoid disruption of water, because you would recognize that sometimes as vehicles traverse the streets, in particular the Island Main Road, you see water floating on the surface. The water department would then have to come in and find out the source of the leak, dig up the Island Main Road in order to do the necessary repairs. Or perhaps it is that there is some new construction, and in order for that person to get water, it is necessary to dig up a section of the road in order to be able to supply that particular new building with water. Those secondary lines were put in so as to eliminate the potential for pipes to become ruptured or for the digging up of the Island Main Road in Sandy Point after it would have been resurfaced. Up to yesterday, I would have had a conversation with the company responsible for the resurfacing of the Island Main Road, and they indicated that one of the ways in which the resurfacing of a road can quickly become deteriorated, dilapidated, is by constant digging up of the road to accommodate water lines. So as best as possible in Sandy Point, we have tried to avoid that happening. Hence, you would have seen a comprehensive bit of work being done in terms of not just the laying of the new water mains, but in terms of those secondary lines on the different sides of the road. As it is currently, I must admit, because I live within the Sandy Point community, that the roads are very dusty. I hear the complaints every single day in terms of the dust. As such, I apologize profusely to the people of Sandy Point for the inconveniences they are currently experiencing, especially with the dust. We have made every effort thus far to ensure that a water truck visits about 2 times per day to sprinkle water along the road to keep down the amount of dust. I recognize that the place is extremely hot, and so within a matter of minutes or an hour or less, you still have dust flying. I have spoken with the person, the contractor responsible for the resurfacing of the road. I was told that as of next Wednesday, we should see work starting in Sandy Point in terms of removing the old surface and starting to prepare the road for the new surfacing to be laid. That I do believe will bring much relief to the people of Sandy Point. Again, on behalf of the ministry, we apologize to you for the inconveniences that you are currently experiencing. However, at the end of the day, you will benefit not only in terms of an improved Island Main Road, you will benefit in terms of the new water lines, you will benefit in terms of the sidewalks which have been placed, you will benefit in terms of the cable being able to bring a faster network to the people of Sandy Point and to the people of St. Kitts. We are just about nearing the end of the work, and so I said to you that relief is on the way. I must also apologize to the persons who live in some of the back areas of Sandy Point, because in those circumstances whereby the Island Main Road is blocked, you have had to use some of those back roads, and not all of the back roads are paved, and as such, persons in the back have also experienced quite a bit of dust. They have experienced more traffic than they are accustomed to, and so you have those persons also being inconvenienced. As soon as we are in a position to pave some more of the roads in the back areas, we will do so. Currently, we are paving the roads at Crabell Heights, and so that is a significant development for the persons living in Crabell. Just as those roads are being paved, those persons living in other areas where the roads are not paved, we give them the full assurance that it is not a matter that they have been forgotten, but resources will not allow us to do all of the roads at the same point in time. You also have a number of other communities here in St. Kitts which are in need of paved roads. So you have different communities competing for the resources that we have. And as best as possible, the government will ensure that we're able to bring relief to as many persons using the resources that we have. I think I can now turn my attention to Old Road Bay, and those of us who traverse that particular corridor would recognize that the paving of the new road has begun. That is a work in progress. The contractor is giving an estimate for this coming weekend to finish paving the road. Once he's able to meet that objective, the road then will be opened for persons to be able to use it. Now, there is still work to be done across Old Road Bay apart from the paving of the road. There are still some 10-ton rocks that we have to put in. Part of what we also need to do is down by the end by Spratnet. We have been able to come to an agreement with Spratnet in terms of using some of that property where Spratnet is currently located to better align the road, instead of you having that corner as soon as you come off of the current road there. And so that will also be done. We are also looking at ensuring that, of course, you have proper lighting along the road, you have the guardrails along the road. So we still have some work to do there, and we are committed to completing that work to ensure that the users of the road, that they have a good experience using that particular road. I recognize, however, that a number of persons have been speeding along the road. And this evening I take the opportunity to say to persons that while it is that you have a new road, a road that is well surfaced, a road with less corners, we want to appeal to you to drive safely on the road. The life that you save might very well be your own life. Between The areas of Old Road Bay up to Godwin Gut, persons would also recognize that the work has begun in terms of the paving of that section of the road. Persons in that particular corridor also would have had some inconveniences over the last weeks, over the last few months, but I think finally they will be able to say that they can now experience the benefits of those roads. Similar to Sandy Point, we would have put in sidewalks in a number of different areas along that particular part of the island. We did some work in terms of water. The cable went. They put in new fiber optic cables, again for the benefits of the residents here in St. Kitts. We have a number of other infrastructural projects taking place along Wellington Road. There's a sidewalk being placed on the southern side of the road. That road is supposed to be widened. We have the traffic signals phase 2, which is almost completed. You would recognize that in 7 different locations we have placed new traffic signals. None of those traffic signals has been commissioned as yet, and there are reasons why we have not commissioned them as yet. We are taking the time to speak with different stakeholders up on the end by the Boardwalk Junction. We are using the opportunity to widen the road there so that depending on the direction you're coming from, some slip lanes or slip lanes, I think is what we refer to them as. Instead of you having to wait for the traffic lights, you can immediately proceed to your destination. In some places, I think they call them turning lanes. That is the alternate word that I was looking for. So that is currently being done. So overall, we are doing a number of things to improve public infrastructure here in St. Kitts. If you are to travel right now to the St. Peter's area, you would recognize that Skelec is doing some work there. We are putting in some underground cables there. Those underground cables basically leading to the Barefoots feeder will bring immense benefits to the different consumers of electricity, be it commercial or residential. For example, when we have hurricanes, quite often we have a number of lines being down, and so the time that it takes for Skelec to be able to put up new poles, run new lines, that should now become a thing of the past with having underground cables. We are not going to remove the overhead ones because we want to have some level of redundancy. In the event something goes wrong with the underground cable, at least the overhead ones can still be utilized. In terms of power coming from the generation plant to that particular feeder, sometimes you have losses in terms of the voltage, in terms of the electricity. Whether it is you have an issue with a corroded line, a transformer, whatever it is. By having these cables underground, that will help to eliminate some of that. Hence, I said to you that the Ministry of Public Infrastructure is doing all that it can with the resources that it has available to us to improve public infrastructure here in St. Kitts. We said to the public that at times you're going to be inconvenienced because of the work that is being done, but I think thus far you have seen benefits accruing to you, whether it is in terms of an improved road network, whether it is in terms of improved supply of electricity and improved supply in water coming to your homes. I know some of you may probably disagree with that one at this point in time, but the fact is that we have done a number of things in terms of ensuring that you're able to get an adequate supply of water. However, climate change is something that we cannot control. You would recognize that in terms of rain at this point in time, we are getting very little. That is a challenge for us, especially for those particular areas that you have reservoirs being used, and so we depend on the rain water in terms of feeding water to the homes here in St. Kitts. However, the ministry at this current point in time is exploring alternative sources of water. whether it is the digging of wells, whether it is desalination. Those are options that we are currently looking at, because we recognize that no longer can we say that water is a commodity here in St. Kitts and Nevis that isn't scarce, and we can use it indiscriminately. Again, to the public, I say thank you for bearing with us. What we are doing, it is in your interest. It is in an interest to upgrade the public infrastructure here in St. Kitts, so that at the end of the day, be it you or future generations, can have a better public infrastructure coming from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Richards. And Minister Richards would have outlined some of the major projects that the ministry is currently undertaking. Of course, he would have appealed to you because of the inconveniences that have been caused. He has appealed to you to exercise a level of patience as we work assiduously to bring these projects to an end. We recognize, of course, that once these projects are completed, definitely we would have a much more better public infrastructure, a much more finer, for want of a better term, landscape. And so as we work towards ensuring that these projects come to a conclusion, come to an end, we ask for your patience. At this point in time, we are going to take a break and then we will come back. Thank you so much.
It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gon' be safe. Everybody gon' be one safe. Kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll up to roll out.
Bless up. Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out. It's our best shot.
Back, and tonight, of course, we are here, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, and we are speaking on infrastructural development in the Federation, particularly in St. Kitts. At this point in time, I am going to now invite Mr. Lee, Martel Lee, a Jamaican, the consultant from ADB. He's the consultant for the Island Main Road and a number of other projects that we are currently undertaking. Mr. Lee, good evening, and how are you? Good evening, Mr. Lee.
How are you doing? Let me say good evening to the Honorable Minister, and good evening to Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Philip Water, and thanks for inviting me, Mr. Permanent Secretary Lloyd. I appreciate the opportunity here to participate in this process. I'm sure there might be burning questions to answer, and I would not want to rob the people of such an opportunity, but it is also important that I emphasize some of the elements that the Honorable Minister has explained from a technical perspective. And I would want primarily to thank the commuters and residents of the major communities that we have disrupted. I would also want to say, despite what is there, the planning process was long and tedious, and that started long before we have actually selected contractors for this job, or the number of jobs we have along the Island Main Road. In particular, we would have looked at the infrastructure, and we would have had major discussions with the stakeholders, and in particular the infrastructure stakeholders, cable with water, skeleton, and flow. We thought we would have put in all the necessary plans in place, and we would have engaged them thoroughly. And we have even we have undertaken the project in phases. And as you will recall, we would have done 5 kilometers east towards Cairn, and then we would have taken the western section up to Challengers. That would have helped us to do a number of things apart from the financial element with which guides the process. We would have had the experience of dealing with the infrastructure. A lot of it in that phase went fairly well, integrating the small contractors with the main road contractors and with the infrastructure owners and stakeholders. This element of it, and I will also emphasize and extend the apologies from my team and Public Works. I'm sure Mr. Gilbert will have something to say about that. But the infrastructure is never always straightforward. We knew of the piping, we knew of the water situation, the handicaps. We also were aware of the aging of the pipes, areas which you have asbestos, the impact of asbestos when you have to travel or traverse the area, because it's a fairly brittle material. And with such a material and the type of equipment that we use on roads, it will impact on it. The intention was to change most of that, and I will not attempt to get into where we have changed and where we haven't. The emphasis that I will try to provide explanation for and areas of emphasis are where we would have had delays and where we would have created local environmental nuisances over and above the construction process. There's always elements of hazard in construction and roadworks. There's always inconveniences, and for the greater good, we plan long term. And the plan is always to look at the infrastructure, which is we would not want to disturb. And once the road surface is done, as the Honorable Minister had emphasized the importance of that. But we also want to look at the type of technological changes that are frequently impacting on the overall growth and development of the country. We look at the traffic increases, the importance of cable water, the capacity of the water lines, etc. Not all of that could have been done, but a lot of the planning has been in place. With the advent of COVID, it has also slowed down considerably the timeline which we have put on it. And I would want to say, because Sandy Point is current, and that was an area we had planned to look at and to provide explanation to the residents, and it would have applied to those areas which we have passed, and those areas where we would have had inconveniences, though it would be a much more limited in comparison to Sandy Point. I would like to explain or re-emphasize some of the concerns that we have seen from the nuisances, I would put it, that has been created. Because for the residents of the areas and townships we pass through, they're really nuisances and inconveniences, but they will be worth it in the end. There would be no explanation to be given if you could upgrade the water line and it wasn't done. There would be no explanation to the residents if they have to go through this a second time in short order. We are looking at infrastructure that will, despite rapid growth in demand for cable, for power lines that has to go in, for water, you can upgrade the lines and simultaneously while the resurfacing is done. That said, they can't be done simultaneously. And as the Honorable Minister explained, we did the sidewalks so that we could create for the residents an area to walk safely, while we are also putting in the water lines. That was delayed. For Sandy Point, we would have planned that ahead of all the road work. And for the Island Main Road, it was planned for the entire upgrades to be done ahead of the road works. And that, for many reasons, did not happen as planned. But in particular, in Sandy Point, we would have planned that work in the last phase to have happened before the holidays, which was Christmas. For the reasons beyond our control, we were unable to do so. Surrey Paving, the main contractor, would have come back after the break and start in Sandy Point, meaning water, cable, and other infrastructure would have been in. That, because of those delays, we have diverted some of the work to other areas so that we would allow the infrastructure to take place. That said, we are at the point where cable is the last link in the chain to be completed. And I can confidently say by tomorrow that element of work will be done. We have met on site with Public Works and with the contractor, Surrey personnel, and we have had Mr. Desmond Lewis, who is the director in charge, who came over to ensure that we have gotten some push with his team, and where we need to do additional planning and to project a tighter schedule, we would have had his input. What is the outcome of this? Immediately as the cable has handed over, we would have done additional inspection, but to eliminate the dust nuisance, we will have Surrey Paving, jointly we have agreed to remove the dust on the surface. And once that is removed, we will sacrifice a top coat to make sure that dust stays down in the areas which we have done trenching. And I'm sure we have also planned for the inspection of the infrastructure that will sub-base, etc., so that once the cables are in, the amount of work will undertake in particular would have already been assessed and would have been placed in the schedule, which I'm now assessing. And the assurance is given that starting tomorrow, you will probably see the surface being clean. In other words, the dust being removed. It will be, the water trucks will follow closely. But as the Honorable Ministers outlined, with the temperature and evaporation of moisture, then that won't last very long. We will use this asphalt top coating, which will keep the dust and the dirt down for a while. We have been assured also by the contractor that come next Wednesday, as already been pointed out, we will have actual work. The preparatory work will be in place, and actual sub-base and grades will be started in earnest. And within 3 to 4 weeks, we will be out of Sandy Point completely, given that there is the weather holds for us and the unpredictable elements are to a minimum. That's what we are expecting. So that covers Sandy Point, and hopefully we would have also simultaneously planned what is happening at Old Road Bay. I touch on the first Sandy Point, and then I will simply indicate or reconfirm what the Honorable Minister had said, is that we have discussed with Rock and Dirt the process or the processes that would have led us to the final overlay that is there. And if you would have noticed that we have put on an 8-inch lean concrete to stabilize that area, which would have been susceptible to moisture movement, and that would give us a bridging space between the final asphalted layer. We're using a 100 millimeter thickness asphalt for durability, 1, and 2, because of the importance of the road. We are looking at a wearing surface that will go beyond 10 years, probably beyond 15 years, with minimal amount of maintenance to it. Of course, everything has to be maintained. The reason that top surface takes so long, 1, we have to ensure that the proper tests are done on the mix design. We have gone through, I think, 5 separate mix design, testing of the gradation of the material, selection of the material. We wanted to ensure that the material is within the bounds of St. Kitts and coming out of the quarries. So all of that is material which we have selected, tested, proven to be correct. And we are now at the stage where the contractor has brought the asphalt plant up to stage, and we are in the process of laying the asphalt. And our observation, apart from a few technical breakdowns that they would have had at the plant, everything seemed to be in progress. I'm probably taking up too much time for this, and Mr. Moderator, Mr. Lloyd, you should guide me if I'm doing too much.
Well, Mr. Lee, of course, we want to thank you so much for the expertise, the guidance that you would have brought to this project. We thank you. Mr. Lee is currently on island, and he would have met with us yesterday, and I think we are having a meeting tomorrow. So we really want to say thanks to Mr. Lee. Before we open the line, of course, I think that you would want to hear from the director, and so I would allow Mr. Gilbert at this time to speak, followed by the water engineer, Mr. Ryan Phillip. Mr. Gilbert, good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And I want to say I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here tonight to share and to enlighten the public as what we are doing. I am here at ZIZ regularly, I would say, on the GQ show in the morning, the traffic talk, to update the public as what is happening when it comes to road work in St. Kitts. So tonight is no strange night in updating you. Now, the minister has said quite a lot, and Mr. Lee, so I won't repeat what they have said. But let me start with the Old Road Bay. With the Old Road Bay project, in 2017, when we had the two hurricanes, Irma and Maria, the road was severed. So the people from the Sandy Point end couldn't pass via Old Road to go to Bastille. And public work was commissioned to deal with the matter. Do whatever you have to do to ensure that this thing don't reoccur. And we actually got the assistance from the consultant, ADB, who was on the ground at the moment, to work with us in coming up with a design. We came up with a few designs, we came up with a few options. One was to go over the hill, and the next one was to go bridge-wise over the sea, and the next one was to use the rocks, which we are actually currently working on. Now, we actually did costing for the three options, main options. We presented them to Cabinet, and we recommend the one which we are using now, which is the rock revetment, and the Cabinet actually agreed with us, and we actually start the process in going into the detailed design stage. We had consultation with stakeholders, with the people of Old Road and the surrounding areas, several town hall meetings, and we actually enlightened them as what we will be doing. In addition to that, we send out the document for tendering, and we receive a minimum of 10 companies which express an interest in the project. And Rock and Dirt Limited was the most responsive bidder, and they are currently on the job trying to complete the work at Old Road Bay. So we want to congratulate Rock and Dirt for the hard work which they are doing, and at the end of the day, they'll be pleased of the product and the quality of work which they are producing. We look at the Island Main Road. We divided the Island Main Road in a number of segments. One, the government intention was to allow the small contractors in St. Kitts to benefit from the expertise dealing with contract documentation, dealing with project of a larger magnitude. So we invited small contractors to bid on the sidewalks and drains in the various villages and towns throughout the island. And then we had a tendering process for the main work, which is the asphalting work, and Surrey Paving. It was the most responsive bidder for that, and they are on the ground actually working too. So we had a number of contractors. We had over 15 contractors working on the Island Main Road, and a number of them, most of them have completed their work, and just a few are now still in the corridor completing their work. At this time, I want to say that we apologize for the inconveniences which we have caused to the many residents throughout the island. But one of the things I want to say to you is that we have taken the opportunity before any road work started in the communities. We actually walked the road, the island main road, and we spoke to the residents who are sharing boundaries with the island main road. We update them as what is going to happen, a one-on-one consultation. We visited their properties, we went inside their property, went around their property, and we actually did a condition survey. So we involve you, the people. As Public Works, next week is Public Works Week of Activities, and our theme for that week is working together to serve you better. And I think that that theme is quite fitting, Mr. Minister, in that we just didn't get up and start to work on the island main road and dug it up and start to fix it and say, you'll get a new road, don't worry about nothing. We actually met with the people and we work with them. So in addition, we work with the cable, electricity, water, and skeleton in order for us to get the product which we are getting. So we're working together to serve you better. I'll stay here for now.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you so much. And thank you for the leadership, of course, that you continue to bring to the Public Works Department. We are now going to hear from Mr. Philip, Water Engineer.
Thanks, P.S. Lloyd. Good evening to all viewers. I would first like to thank the Honorable Minister Richards for inviting me to speak on this panel. I always look forward to interacting with the public and hearing some of the many concerns that you guys would have. Our mission at the department is to provide a 24/7 supply of potable water, and where we aren't able to meet or fulfill that mission, I would want to hear from you to know how we can rectify any issues that are there as soon as possible. A lot has been said already by Mr. Lee, the Honorable Minister, and also Mr. Gilbert, but I would just like to add a few technical bits about the work that was completed in Sandy Point in particular. We were the first stakeholders to commence work in that region, so we were really put under the microscope. Everything had to be in order. Sandy Point is a very linear settlement. Most of the essential services are found on the island main road, the hospital, the primary school, the high school, and for those reasons we had to ensure that we worked as efficiently as possible to mitigate the traffic inconveniences, to ensure that there isn't too much dust pollution. But the main thing for us at the water department is to ensure that the disruption in your water supply isn't prolonged. I really want to thank you guys or commend the residents for being so open. I know that there were instances where we would have had the supply cut for a few hours on a regular basis, and that was, that's the nature of the work. And I really want to thank most of the residents in Sandy Point for bearing it with us. Of course, there were a few disgruntled customers, and I mean, I can understand water is an essential service. It isn't something that we can live without, so those interruptions, we apologize for them. In terms of the replacements of the lines, we would have replaced some 2,000 meters, or about just under 7,000 feet of old water lines, deteriorating water lines, either asbestos cement or cast iron pipe. It varied in different areas. We replaced it with a 6-inch iron pipe that is very durable and that will last for up to about 50 to 100 years. So I don't think that the water department would have to commence or undertake any more work in that area for some time. We started in December installing peripheral lines. The minister would have spoke to secondary lines. Before we started working, I think the count was 48 or 49 individual half-inch or 1-inch lines that would have crossed the road. And we thought that it was necessary to eliminate some of these and bring that number down to about 10 to 15, because the more infrastructure that we have in the road, the greater the risk of leaks or anything happening. So we thought that it was necessary to remove some of those peripheral or secondary lines and run them along the sidewalk, make them more accessible to ensure that your supply isn't cut as often as it was during the time that we spent in the corridor. In terms of the running of the 6-inch line, it took some time because there were a few delays beyond our control that we really had to work around to ensure that we completed the work in a timely manner. One of the major issues that we would have encountered is because the pipe that was installed in Sandy Point has been there for such a number of years, I would say well over 50 years, many of the workers in the department weren't aware where the pipe track had run, So there were days where we would be trying to reconnect at the end of the day to ensure that the residents had their water back in the evenings. And the pipe would be run under the sidewalk. It would zigzag at times, and that really caused some major issues on the road. And that's one of the things that we also try to mitigate against. So now the pipe is run along a nice straight track on the mountain side of the road. So the water issues in Sandy Point, they shouldn't be as significant as they were before. They should be few and far between. And once again, I want to thank the residents for being so open with us, sharing their views. And yeah, in terms of other work, I also want to reach out to the residents of New Road at the moment. I want to apologize for the inconveniences that we would have caused there over the past few days. It would be as a result of the work that is being undertaken by Skelec. As they move through the area, they sometimes accidentally break some of those same peripheral or secondary lines that I would have spoke about earlier. And that would have had the water off for some time. I have gotten a few calls in recent days, and I would have explained to the customers who were very responsive, and they understood the circumstances, and I want to thank them for that. In terms of water resource in general, the minister pointed to climate change and the reduction in rainfall. In the past month or two, we've seen a significant reduction in rainfall, which has put a few of the areas that are predominantly fulfilled by water from surface intakes. So that would be Lodge, Keon, certain areas in St. Peter's, Milliken, Cedar Grove. We've seen significant fall-offs in the amount of water that we have. And I want you guys to bear with us because climate change is real and it is affecting us at the moment. We are now forced to do more with less. With the growing demand for water, I would always want to preach conservation because it is important. You should be your brother's keeper when it comes to water. We need to be more aware. We need to be better water managers to ensure that we can have water to bathe, have water to cook with. I would say that if there is anything in terms of non-essential use, watering plants, washing cars, I wouldn't advise that you do that at the moment. If you see your neighbors washing cars or watering plants at the moment or doing anything non-essential, I would urge you to have a chat with them because water is a resource that is shared. You understand? And if it is that it is wasted next door, it's the same as if you're wasting it because it would affect the supply that you would have. I will stop here for now, and I look forward to hearing some of the questions and concerns that you would have so that we can look to rectify them as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip. And Mr. Philip is one of our young engineers who has been doing an excellent job. We want to thank you so much, of course, Mr. Philip, for the work that you continue to do. We're going to take a break, but before we do, I want to provide you with at least 4 numbers. So in the event that once we get back and you would want to call, the numbers are 466-2666, 466-2666, 662-8674, 662-8674, 767-4765, 767-4765. And for persons who would want to call from overseas direct, the number is 1-239-645-4500, 1-239-645-4500. We are now going to pause for a commercial break.
To avoid getting the coronavirus, remember to wash your hands thoroughly and frequently before and after preparing food, after using the toilet or changing a diaper for a baby, sick person, or the elderly, after blowing your nose, and after leaving large gatherings or moving away from persons who appear ill. Encourage others to wash their hands and also use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer of 60 to 70% solution. Stay away from events having large gatherings of people. You can expose yourself to more possible infections in large groups. Also, avoid sharing cutlery, cups, glassware, etc. with others. Viruses can linger on these items and may be transferred this way. Avoid shaking and holding hands, and hugging or keeping an infected person in close proximity. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA.
I will take the vaccine because building defenses against COVID-19 is a team effort, and we are all a key part of that defense.
I definitely will be taking the vaccine when it's my turn.
I will be taking the vaccine as it is an important tool in the fight against the pandemic.
It is important for me to vaccinate to ensure that if I do become infected with the disease, it can prevent hospitalization. In addition, it also helps with herd immunity.
I will take the vaccine to protect myself, my loved ones, my clients, my co-workers, my community.
St. Kitts and Nevis, why do we need to vaccinate? Kenisha? So we can jab COVID-19 away.
You know, it's me, Mr. HE, and I'm here with one message: roll up to roll out. We all know how difficult things have been during this COVID-19 pandemic. While we continue to wash our hands, wear a face mask, and practice social distancing, how about we take it one step further and get vaccinated? Call the nearest health center to find out if you are eligible to be vaccinated. Or you can contact the Ministry of Health at any one of these numbers down below. Don't be discouraged by the negativity. We all have a role to play in protecting this federation. So, St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll out, yeah. Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll up to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Good night again. We are back. We have with us Minister Richards, Deputy Prime Minister, the Director of Public Works, Mr. Gilbert, Water Engineer, Assistant Water Engineer, Mr. Ryan Phillip, and the Consultant for ADB, Mr. Lee. Today we are here from the Ministry of Public Infrastructure and we are discussing infrastructural development in St. Kitts. I am now going to open the line for persons who would want to call, and I wish to remind you of the telephone numbers: 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and for persons overseas, 1-239-645-4500. The lines are now open for persons who may want to ask questions. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm so proud of Mr. Phillips. He made me feel so good as a parent of a Washington parent. I feel so proud. Mr. Phillips, congrats, and you're doing a great job. Take care.
Voice, but thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much.
As we are waiting calls, I don't know if there is any further information Mr. Gilbert might want to share with the public with reference to the traffic lights.
Yes, pertaining to the traffic light, we have completed phase 1 of the traffic light, and that is completed, that's working, up and running. The public was expressing some concern in relation to the lights at 4th Street. We have actually listened to their concerns. We have actually done some upgrade to those areas. What we did, we synchronized the lights there. So when you have walk, it's for all parties to walk at the same time. And then the walk will switch off, and then you will have the various intersections moving. Now for phase 2 of the traffic light, we have installed the lights by Wellington Road, by the Wellington Road gas station. Next one by the GUT in College Street. Another one down by the Cooley's got the bridge, Social Security right in that junction there. We have one right by the old Treasury, which is a museum. Then we move further upwards. We have one at the Sands on the Bay Road. Then we have one at Sundown Road, and we have the final one at the Bird Rock Bay Road intersection. Now, all the infrastructure are in place except the one at Bird Rock intersection. With that one required far more work than all of the others. With that one, we had to actually put a third lane in place, which actually from the study, we realized that one we'd have, as the minister said earlier, we'd have a slip lane and you'd have the normal 2 lanes. So that one we are actually, Public Work is the contractor on site who is constructing the third lane, opening up the road there, and we had to replace the sidewalk which we met there. One of our aim in Public Works is not to make the residents any worse off. So we removed the sidewalk, we took up the space there, and we actually put in the new road in place, and we actually giving you back the sidewalk. So very shortly, that work will be completed, and then we'll have the light turn on, and then we'll have that second phase in progress.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. Do we have a question? Yes. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. I'm calling in regards of trying to figure out something here. If anything can be done with the road there in Lodge Village, right by the Bat, and Atlas Village, if anything, if they could even widen out a bit. We realize the side walls, I don't think they could take no beating from these trucks. The truckmen have done very well, especially with those 40-foot trailers, and I think they need to be widened a bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, for that concern. Yes, next person. Hi, good evening.
Hi, pleasant evening, and I hope everyone is doing well.
We're hearing you quite well. Good evening, very well.
Good evening. I live in the West Farm area, East West Farm Development, and I must say thank you guys very much for the increase in the water level. I can actually take a shower, and the water is hot, and it will stay hot until I turn off the water. So I must say 2 thumbs up to the water department for increasing the power of our water in that section. However, I would like to beg continuously for some roads at East West Farm Housing Development. Please. Because right now it's the dry season and the dirt is killing us up here. Please. So from next year, 2022, I'm going to be heading Honorable Sean Richards for awards in East West Farm Development. Okay, sir?
I've heard you quite well.
Thank you so much. Good night, gentlemen.
Thanks for commending the water department.
Good evening. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, my question is very simple. This may not be the time to do it, but it's just something that been bothering me. You know, when you're coming from the countryside, when you reach the by Palmetto Point where the horseman business is right there, I noticed they have a yellow line there, and I think the traffic needs to go back and look at it again because it could create a big accident. My thing is, if the person is coming from town or coming from the country, either way, right, where the yellow line stopped off, I think they should have bring it all the way down to the corner on the hill instead of stopping it off there by the horseman place to go in his entrance. Because if somebody park up in front of that place coming over towards the hill, the person who coming from town and the person who coming from the countryside going to town, if he try to overtake or try to pass, even though you have the vehicle park up there, because they allow you to park there, which I think it's wrong. And that person is coming from the Sandy Point and going to town, and you have 4 or 5 vehicles parked up on that side, on the left-hand side. He won't be able to see coming from Sandy Point going to town, the vehicle that's coming from town going to Sandy Point. And it's vice versa. It's on the other side as well. And the parking area are right on top of the hill. So I think personally that the traffic department needs to go back and take a serious look at that and change it. If not, in the future, we're going to have a serious accident there. The bar that's on the side of the container bar, I don't have a problem with the bar. I just have a problem with the area that they specify that you could park, which will be a big obstruction for vehicles going either way, if vehicles are parked there. So that is one of my concerns. And the public works department, I did not hear them mention the traffic sign there by Rams. I heard them mention the one by the one that close to Royal Bank. I heard them mention that one. But the one there by Rams, in front of Rams, I would really like to see it get in operation because some people are talking about it. And I am concerned about what's happening as well in that area. So those are just my 2 concerns. But I want to say congratulations to the entire team. I think Sean Richards and his team, they've been doing an excellent job. Now, whether you're PAM, Labour, UVP, or whatever the case may be, I don't think they should get nothing other than congratulations from all parties. Because if anybody says that they are not doing anything with that shocking that they're in government, they're going to be very biased. So my thing is, congratulations, guys. Keep on doing what you're doing, and no matter what people may say, keep up the good works. Now, the water engineer, I think they need to look at the size of pipe that they have coming from, in Keon area coming through Monkey Hill. They have a little source over there. When I was a little boy, I went up there some years ago. I done in my 70s right now, so I don't even remember up there. But they have a little catchment up there that they catch the water in and distribute it to Keon and Tongue, I believe. I think those pipes up there have been up there since ancient years. And those pipes could be changed because now we have so much infrastructure in terms of building. I think the pipe that are bringing the water to town is a little too small. The same 16 pipe that he's talking about, right, that they put in Sandy Point, I think they need to consider it and start to think about the future to put some of those same 6-inch pipe up there to bring the water to town. That is my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And of course, yes, we would have had a few concerns. Hello. Yes, good evening. Go right ahead. We have a question.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
And good evening to the panelists. Hello.
Yes, good evening. We're hearing you.
Yeah, I too want to congratulate the minister and the team that he have. I'm living in Quabil Heights, and the minister is going to smile because he know what we've been going through. But at present, we cannot complain. The guys are doing a fabulous job at Quabil Heights, and I just want to thank him publicly. When I said a fabulous job, the situation is almost finished. The project is almost completed, and I foreseen everybody want to be coming to Quabil Heights. I don't know how we're going to get it work out, but I must say, I remember some months ago I spoke to him concerning what we were going through, and he said, Mr. Wilshire, we're going to try our best. It's not budgeted for, but in the same time, we're going to try to see what we can do. And in quick time, we were surprised. The guys came, do the survey, and right now it's almost completed. In relation to the road, yes, as the minister said, all of us had to go to the inconvenience, but I'm seeing now that these guys are getting ready to do the paving. I couldn't imagine how my enemy person going to be looking forward to buying a new vehicle, because it's going to be, you know what I mean, but I still going to appeal to the general public, especially across Old Road Bay. By the general public have to understand, yes, the road is encouraging, but at the same time, please to slow down, because the life you save might be your own. But generally, even with the traffic, the traffic lights, these things, because there's so many traffic on the road, and the public works has been doing a great job. So I want to commend them wholeheartedly. This youngster, I was very impressed with him. I don't know him personally, the youngster on the panel. I must say, he delivered, he cool, calm, and collective, but he obviously know what he's about. So I just want to congratulate him and in his future endeavors. Just keep up what you're doing. So whatever you're doing is working. And as someone congratulated you earlier, I want to do the same thing. And Minister, of course, you're doing a great job. So I just want to wish you all the best. It's not easy, but at the same time, as you say, we have to go through the inconvenience to get the benefit of it. And in the long run, all of us will benefit. So thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening. We're going to take our final call before we allow our panel of 4 to maybe weigh in on some of the concerns and questions. Good evening. Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. We are hearing you. You're live on ZIZ.
Good evening. Good evening. Good night, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Minister.
Good evening,
I think
sir.
you all have been doing a good job so far. We've waited on this road for so long. I think we can wait a few more days or a few more weeks. But since we're dealing with infrastructure, I am concerned. Can you give us an update as to what is happening to the bypass road? This bypass road, I think, is well needed now. I mean, you see what's happening. You see where the vehicles are coming. And sometimes the road is so narrow, it can't take two vehicles. I think we can have public works come up there, take a look at it, and maybe throw some dirt in the areas where the road is not wide so that the vehicles can pass. But I made a suggestion some time ago about
Caller seemed to have been disconnected. I really do recognize that voice, but there are a number of concerns and questions that were, and commendations, of course, from the public. We want to thank you so much. Mr. Gilbert, I don't know if you want to speak on the traffic signs at Rams and also widening of the Lodge Atlas Road or anything of that nature.
Yes. Thank you very much, caller. That was the first caller who spoke about Lodge Village, Atlas Gut. I would say to you that I am very familiar with those areas, very intimate with those areas. And I have spent some time in those corners and examined those. We have actually Public Work has presented a project profile to Sustainable Development for a new project for, I think it was 5 guts. It was a Large Gut, Atlas Gut, Keys, a Challengers Gut, I think it's 4, Challengers Gut. The profile was to remove those corners and make it straighter. It went forward, but apparently because of COVID and the shortage of funds, it wasn't moving the direction for it to be a project for 2021. But we put it back in for 2022, so we hope that it receives some favorable response and we will get those corners rectified.
Traffic signs at Rams.
Yes, but before the traffic signs at Rams, Old Road Bay speeding. Now with the Old Road Bay, the commissioner and myself and his team, we went to Old Road Bay to look and see exactly where the signs should go. We even discussed the speed limit in the Old Road Bay, all along the road there. The road is about 3/4 of a mile. And when I am aware that people speed on that road, when the commissioner came out of his vehicle, then the traveling public started slow down because they saw the commissioner in his uniform. Now, we discussed the speed limit. He said the speed limit in that area is 40 miles an hour. Anything over that, you are breaking the speed limit. So we want to urge you. What we have done, we have removed a number of the corners in that area there. So it's relatively straight. You can see almost from one end to the other end. But it doesn't mean that you have to speed. You have to work within the speed limit, which is a sign which is 40 miles an hour. As the minister said, the life you save might very well be your own. Now, pertaining to the traffic signal by the Rams, as I said, we have one by Social Security, we got College Street, got the bridge in that area. Then we come up and we have one by Rams, the old treasury, right in that junction there, Port Zante West. Then we move up and we have the other one at Port Zante East, which is at the Sands Complex. Then we go up to Sandong Road, and then we move up to Bird Rock. So those are the traffic signals.
Okay, maybe we could have Ryan speak to the laying of pipes, the different size pipes in Keon area that they would have spoken about, the individual would have spoken about. Mr. Philip?
Sure, no problem. I would actually like to start by thanking the first caller from East West Farm, because it's not often that persons commend the water department for the work that they do. So I really appreciate that our guys do so much to provide you guys with a 24-hour supply. And we did do some work to improve the pressure in East West Farm and Trinity and a few other subdivisions. So thanks so much for that. In terms of the sizing of the pipe from Keon, how our system is set up, there is water coming in from the Green Hill intake in Keon, and it branches off into Odgies in Stapleton, and another pipe goes towards the tank in Keon. What I would like to say first is that the sizing of pipes isn't something that we just get up and change. It is based on engineering or scientific analysis. And I also mentioned that there has been a significant reduction in rainfall when I first spoke. So I think that the caller mentioned that he was up there in age, and I think back in his time there may have been more water running through those pipes. So increasing the size of the pipes might not help us at this point, but I thank you for the suggestion though. We are doing anything and everything possible to ensure that persons have water continuously. Even in the Keon area, it doesn't matter where you are. We go above and beyond to ensure that persons have water for essential purposes, and I cannot stress that enough. Non-essential purposes, washing of cars, watering plants, washing down your driveway. We cannot engage in such activities at this point because of how high the demand is and how low the production is. So that is where I would want to yes.
Thank you Mr. Philip, and we are going to hear from the minister. Do we have a caller? We are going to hear from the minister, and he's going to address the issue of the bypass road in Sandy Point. Minister Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Before I move to the bypass road in Sandy Point, let me say a very special thank you to all of the callers who have called thus far. I think the majority of persons basically said thanks to us for the work that is being done by the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. That says to me that persons recognize the work which is being done. They are appreciative of the work. As I said earlier, there might be some inconveniences at some point in time, but generally we try to, as best as possible, ensure that we answer to the public and that we're able to provide the public with the necessary infrastructural work which is needed. Of course, we cannot do everything immediately because you also have a number of other ministries which in government which are also in need of funds to undertake their work, and so within the budgetary constraints that we have, we make every effort to satisfy the public. I can say, for example, there are persons that would message me, be it 10, 11 in the night, 12 o'clock in the night. I'm able to call Ryan. Ryan, there's a burst pipe in this particular area, and he would say immediately to me he would have someone dispatched to the area. So even while you have many persons working from 8 to 4, the water department in particular, we have persons working around the clock to satisfy our consumers. I can say the same thing about Skellig. Within the Public Works Department, Mr. Gilbert can say to you, he and I have had many conversations, and so we're able to get many things done. We actually go out in the field when persons express that they have a concern, and we look at what is needed. I can say the same thing about Zeke, who is the manager for the roads division. I am able to call Zeke. Zeke, there's a pothole in this particular area that we need to address. And he would say, Mr. Minister, I'm going to take a look at it in the morning, I'm going to take a look at it in the afternoon. And in most instances, those potholes, they are actually addressed. That reminds me that in the Sandy Point community, between the area of the Gut and Fig Tree, we are fully aware of the fact that you have a crack in the bridge there. I give you full assurance that that is being addressed. We are actually intending to put a grill in that area, because that is not the first time that you have one of those blocks in the area which has cracked. And so rather than putting in more of those block types, we are putting in a grill which hopefully would alleviate the need for further work in that area. The grill is currently being manufactured. We had 3 tenders to do the work in terms of the grill, and so very shortly we're expecting upon the completion of the grill for it to be placed there, so that that area is no longer a nuisance to persons. I know that persons have put tire and different things there to warn those in particular who are driving that this particular area is compromised. So it is not that the area is being ignored. For Mr. Lady from Fig Tree, who constantly reminds me just about every single day about the ramp for the boats in Fig Tree. Up to this week, I had a further conversation with Mr. Gilbert about it. He told me that he already has an estimate in terms of doing the work there, and so I'm expecting him, and I'm going to hold him accountable for getting the ramp in Fig Tree repaired. Now, the gentleman who called in about the bypass road, it's actually a voice that I recognize. It's actually the dad of the PS who called about the bypass road. Now, there is actually a design for a bypass road in Sandy Point, but as I said, we have different competing priorities. The priority at this point in time has been the Island Main Road. However, I would also add that what I've recognized is that once the roads in the back areas of Sandy Point are paved, you don't necessarily have to use the car park area where you have the narrow road. I know I personally at times have left from Crab Hill and have exited over in the Cleverly Hill area by the New Play Field, because if you take the Crab Hill area by where the last set of project houses have been built, you start there by where Mr. Berry lives, and you drive along that particular area up into the farms, housing farms, meadows area, and that can actually take you over into Roland Hill, down onto Boaks Road, and all the way across there. However, because of the terrain, most persons perhaps would opt not to drive in that particular area. The roads there, they are in need of paving. I would accept that I drive a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and so it's easier for me to do so. But I think once those roads are paved, then persons would have the option of using those roads as opposed to the car park road, which is narrow, as the caller would have pointed out. However, we still intend to look at the bypass road and determine the feasibility of putting in that particular road. To the caller who spoke of the traffic matter, we will of course touch base with the traffic department in terms of relooking that area and making a determination as to whether or not the yellow line, which was recently put in, which means no parking on those sides of the road, should be extended as not to cause any accidents in the area. Pardon?
Palmetto Point.
In Palmetto Point, Trinity area.
Thank you so very much, Minister. Do we have a question? A caller? Mr. Gilbert, I would have received a WhatsApp a while ago. Someone is asking about the incomplete roads around the island, that the number of roads that are disjointed and causing...
Mr. Lee. Ask Mr. Lee to speak.
Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee, are you still here with us?
There.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we were talking about the incomplete roads around the island, and a number of persons have been echoing that same concern.
Yes, you would see that from the areas completed, we have gaps in the island main road, and also there might be several areas where you have secondary roads, which the integration of both are still to be completed. And mainly those areas where we have gaps is one or two things, is that we would have anticipated additional works from the Water Commission. So we would have skipped areas where we have indecisions. There are plans to replace sections of pipes, etc. And we would not want to proceed it without those decisions being finalized. I think most of them are now finalized and we will be proceeded. It is also some of those, because of the quantity of the work to be done, we would not want, for several reasons, to have the contractor going to do small sections of the works, because to be economical in the process, once you get the asphalt plant going, you must have enough in terms of volume of work to be done. Also, the cost in mobilizing and demobilizing the contractor has become a burden on the project. So what we are doing, and you would see, once we get going with that, say the section they're now working on, we're looking at from Old Road Bay at Spratnest all the way to complete that section in Sandy Point. And that would give them enough work to do with all the heavy equipment, cost of mobilizing them, cost of running the plant, cost of heating up the asphalt, using all of that goes into fixed costs, which we would not want to change unless it's absolutely necessary, so that we keep the budget that we are working with and the cost of the project to a minimum. So we would have facilitated the infrastructure, and rather than waiting to have the road continuously done in one flow, we would have skipped areas to give the utility companies the privilege of making the adjustments. We are now in the process of assessing what work to be done, how we group them, and how we can finalize the schedule which will push us to the end of the project. So rest assured we are assessing it and it will be done.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Lee. At this point in time, we are now going to hear from one of our callers. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator.
Good evening, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I would like to congratulate the Honorable Minister, Sean Richards, for the splendid work he's doing in the community of Sandy Point. We all are very proud of him. We all are proud of the Ministry of Infrastructure, Post and Urban Development. I also would like to thank Mr. Philip. I just saw him on the television this evening, and I can say that when we had a problem here at Stadium View with water, I was directed to call him. It was an early morning, and he really took my call, and he went out of his way to remedy the situation. So, Mr. Philip, thank you very much from all of us here at Stadium View. Also, Mr. Minister, the residents of Stadium View, they are always behind me asking me to make sure that the area there from Stadium View, there's a drain which leads into Brooks Road. There's a grill there, and it is filled with silt or mud for a couple of years now. And so they would really, all of us here would really like to get it rectified. So if you can send a team or someone out to, look at it and get it rectified. On the other hand, so there are a number of roads which the public are not sure whether they are public roads or private roads, but I know some of them are public roads, especially those in this behind Stadium View, behind where I'm living and so on. And if a team can come maybe from sustainable development, point out these roads, get them cleared, so they're being cleared, over time, that will be grateful. Also wish to commend you again for the sidewalks which you put down in the town of Sandy Point, and I can only appeal to the Sandy Pointers to let us keep our community clean and let us feel proud of our community. Thank you very much.
So very much, caller. We are now going to return back to our lines and entertain another caller. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good evening again.
Good evening.
I need to, again, to congratulate everybody. You guys need to feel very, very proud of yourself for what you've been doing in the infrastructure in our island. But my message is for the minister. Mr. Minister, I need you to take a look at in Port Zante, because they have some speed bumps that when it even where the little container is, to go into Port Zante or to come out of Port Zante, I think you need to look at them properly. One of the reasons I talked to somebody and I tell them to put the speed bump wrong. Number one, those speed bumps was put there because of an accident somebody almost get into. Hear me carefully. Now, those speed bumps, are still creating a problem for people, because if there's no sidewalk going on either side, right? Our season soon open up, and people coming off of the ship, they're going to be walking across there, and because of the speed bumps in the road, and no sidewalk is there, I must say, people are going to tend to step over into the road, and accidentally they could get hit by a vehicle. So I personally don't think those speed bumps should be there. Those yellow bell tree that we have on either side, I think they need to move, and those sidewalk needs to go there. The same sidewalk like what you have going up Factory Road away to enjoy the island. I love them very much. And I think it will be a lot safer if a sidewalk go along the sides, on the two sides, and those speed won't move so that people won't have to step into the road, especially just because something just does act so funny sometimes. And that is something, so I would like you, to look into seriously. Think about it. It doesn't have to be now. I know you all have a lot of expenses going on right now, but as a matter of safety for the pedestrians, then I think those speed bumps needs to move and two sidewalk needs to go in. That's my comment.
Thank you so very much, caller. We are now going to go back to the lines. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, with respect to the water issue, there's a old water tank at Neesmos outside the sugar factory. I don't know if it's possible that the government could tap into that and use that as a storage source for the Bastia area. Because every night in Bastia, it seems like water goes at a certain time. And even if they could clear a piece of land right next to it and erect another tank, even a bigger tank there. Because the tank is just here like it's just rusty and all whatever, but I don't know how the inside of it look or whatever, but I think they should try tap into it and use that as a storage to help mitigate the water situation in Bastia. And I think that's an ideal place to probably build a next larger tank right next to it. And we could have more than enough water to share around in the Bastia area. Yeah, thanks.
So very much. We're going to take one more call before we allow the persons on the panel to respond. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, and this is Buckingham College. I want to congratulate the Deputy, Mr. Honorable Sean K. Richards, for continuing for being a people person. Now, he's one of the ministers that I must say it's very easy to interact to and very easy to reach out to and who get things resolved. And I'll move on. Deputy, I want to speak about Old Road Bay, which is very dear to me because as a child, I pass there every day. And I really want to commend you for continue to pushing this project as I see asphalt are now being laid on the concrete. Could you give me a little insight on it as to say if we're going to have a sidewalk? Because, persons tend to use that road for exercising. Or what is going to happen to the existing side of it? You know, I mean, what kind of beautification can we see or can we vision of Old Road Bay? One of the things that I don't like, and I know that it is for our protection driving, is that it's a beautiful view driving and able to see the ocean. But because of the height of the rock, that view is now gone, right? So I'm wondering if we're going to have a sidewalk for persons to jog across, exercise, or if the existing area would be condemned, so there's not going to be no walking, no driving, whatever. If there's any other development for Old Road. In terms of the road, you're not only resurfacing the road, the drainage, Honorable, is important. And I want to continue to listen to the people who are in the area, because some of the drainage, the water is not being diverted properly, right? So the persons who have the contract liaise with them so they can interact with persons so they can know exactly where to channel the water, because we're trying to move away when persons are driving from all this water, puddle water that was in the road ever so long. And the last thing before I go, the persons who are walking on the road, right? Sometimes the traffic has to be diverted. It is very important for persons to know where they're going. I find they just tell you go left or go right. Now, I'm from St. Kitts. I'm familiar with the place, so I will know the shortcut. But for persons who may not be familiar with the area, and from time to time, we have guests who might take an island tour, right? And when they divert, there's no sign to say, well, you're going to make a right here now, when you're going to come down the other road to get back to the main road. So that's very important to let the persons know that continue giving the direction all the way through. And Deputy, continue doing a good job, and I look forward for more interaction with you. And you have a very powerful team that is behind you. And to name two, you have my lovely PS, Mrs. Jasmine Weeks. You have Walsey. You have Tango and those guys who are behind you, supporting you in your strive for leadership in this country. Have a good night. And this is Bucky Got It, and Bucky always got it. Over and over.
Thank you very much. We want to say thanks to all of those callers. We are going to now allow the persons on the panel to speak to some of the issues. We would have heard about the overgrown drain or grill in Sandy Point, the Port Zante, with the individual would have spoken about the speed bumps, and also removing the yellow stands or the yellow poles. An individual called in relation to the water tank at Needs Must and asked if it can be used as a source for the Bastia area. And the final caller would have spoken about the Old Road Bay, the whole idea of beautifying the area and creating a sidewalk for persons to drag and walk. And also he mentioned a little bit of, in relation to poor drainage. We're going to ask Mr. Ryan at this time to speak to the issue of the water tank in the Needs Must area.
Okay. I would actually first like to start by thanking a few callers back who called from Stadium View, and he commended us in terms of our response time and how assiduously we work to have any issues that are brought to us rectified. We have within the department some of the hardest working civil servants, and I really want to commend them for the work that they do. And there is never a period or there is never a time where we purposefully leave residents or consumers without water. And that would lead into the other point about the tank at, they said Needs Must, but it's actually behind the factory. It's a big steel tank that I would assume was used when the sugar industry was booming. It's not owned by the department. It's not in use currently. But immediately when I think about what we can do with it, because we have had discussions internally to figure out how can we use this tank. Gravity or the elevation is an issue, sorry. Because our system is gravity fed, we would need the tanks to be at a certain elevation to build the requisite pressures to ensure that you have proper supply at your homes. The other thing that I would like to add is that the immediate issue in the country in terms of the water resource is not storage. It's about producing more water. It's about alternate sources of water. The minister would have mentioned desalination, digging deeper wells. We need to find more water, and then we can move towards additional storage, because currently we have tanks. Some of these tanks may be empty from time to time because we don't have enough water coming in. But with all that said, there is something that we can do. I'm sure if we think we may be able to use those tanks for trucking companies, for agriculture, for some other purpose, a non-potable purpose, and we would look and try to find out what we can do to utilize them. But currently, in terms of putting it into our system to assist persons in Bastia, it wouldn't help much.
Thank you, Mr. Philip. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Minister, I don't know if you want to speak on the Old Road Bay, or you are going to allow Mr. Gilbert to speak on the Old Road Bay. Mr. Gilbert? The minister will speak, sorry.
Before Mr. Gilbert goes ahead, what I will do is ask Mr. Gilbert to speak specifically to the sidewalks, and in terms of the view of the seawater that the caller spoke to, I will ask Mr. Lee to speak to that, because it's only yesterday he and I had a conversation about that aspect of the work there. There's something that is actually being proposed to compensate for persons driving along the Old Road Bay area not being able to get that beautiful view of the sea that they have gotten accustomed to. Mr. Gilbert can also speak in terms of the drainage along the Old Road Bay. The caller who spoke about the stadium view area and the drainage there, I will have the manager for the roads division to come and take a look at the particular area that you are referring to. We will try our best to have that situation addressed. I recognize the voice of the caller, and so if it is that I need to get in touch with him to get more clarity from him, I will do exactly that. Yes, there are a number of speed bumps. There is a number of speed bumps in the Port Zante area. The caller is suggesting that perhaps those be removed and sidewalks be put in, so that pedestrians in particular can move about safely in the Port Zante area. That is a conversation I will have to have with the board for UDC. I would expect that the board will also liaise with the traffic division of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force to get some guidance. I think it is a good idea in terms of having the sidewalks being put in to accommodate pedestrians. I know there are other walkways in the area, but of course there's nothing wrong with assessing the area and determining if indeed there is a need for such. What I can also add is that in terms of the traffic lights which have been placed on both ends of Port Zante, whether you want to call them the entrances, the exits of Port Zante, that is over by the side of where you have Avis Car Rental, or right immediately in front of Rams. Those traffic lights were put in recognition of the fact that once you have a number of cruise ships within the port, there will be concerns in terms of traffic and persons being able to move about in a timely manner. So I think all of that would have to be taken into consideration with regards to any decisions which are being made. I think those would be the questions that I have for me to answer, and so I now yield to Mr. Gilbert and to Mr. Lee.
I will deal with the sidewalk issue at Old Road Bay, and Mr. Lee will deal with the beautification of Old Road Bay. With the sidewalk, yes, the design has sidewalk on both sides. So there will be sidewalk on both sides. And I think you asked about the drainage on the old road. Yes, we are aware that you have puddles there when you have heavy rainfall. That will be addressed. So if you realize on the old road, there is a gut there. And we're going to shape the road so that the water can go down into the low-lying areas, and we have pipes to take the water into the sea. So they will eliminate the flooding. Now that road now will become, when we open the new road, that road, the old road will become redundant. What we will do, we block it off so it would not be passable. But there are other services on that road, for example, the water lines. I think Flow has their services on that road. It will be used by them and maybe them only. And everybody will be more or less driving and walking on the new road. I will let Mr. Lee deal with the beautification of the new road. In addition to that, Mr. Lee, one of the questions being asked as to why the stones are so high, why the rock armors are so high, so you cannot enjoy the scenery of the sea.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Honorable Minister, Mr. Gilbert, and thank you very much for leading me into that stage of it. I would want to say first and foremost, though, just to support the traffic flow through Port Zante, is that the upgrade of the pier will probably, you're looking at with 3 Oasis class vessels, you are looking at an additional probably 22,000 persons. So the flow integrating with the traffic signal requires redesigning of those roads, and there is a redesign which exists for that, and I'm sure it's in the making and has to be implemented in conjunction with the traffic flow. All the traffic signals are programmable to integrate and enhance flow all the way to the roundabout at the Black Bank to pick up whether you're going to the southeast or hit the bypass to go west. So the strategy is to really move the traffic flow away from the center of the city, and it integrates the traffic internally with Port Zante. So there has to be sidewalk, there has to be modifications to all that are there at the moment to ensure that you can have the traffic flow and pedestrianization of the area at the same time. I just thought, Minister, I would just add that because I know it's in the making, along with other things that I might not know. Back to Old Road Bay, I was just reminding the Honorable Minister yesterday that when we made the presentation that Mr. Gilbert referred to with the options, I was made aware that the Old Road Bay is probably the oldest town in St. Kitts. And we had indicated at the time, and I think that was part of the selling point, that those rocks will be there. Why are they so high? The surges from not necessarily a hurricane, but the type of tropical depressions that we get to the south of St. Kitts. You can see wave heights up to 20, 23 feet along that area. And I'm sure the knowledge for most residents and commuters will take us back to the 2017, I think, was the last major damage. And what you find is that those 5-ton, 7-ton rocks would end up sometimes in the road, apart from sections of the road being moved. We are trying to mitigate against that. So we have used 20 tons, 10-ton rocks, and the surges to fortify against that. We need both the geometric shape that gives us the calming mechanism that you want. I will use that word, but in engineering, you would not use calming and surges at the same time. But what we want to do is to disperse the energy and at the same time protect the road. If it's at the same level, then you'll have huge topovers that will destroy the surface in short order. So we need those to protect, one, the excess surges that we will get, and two, to avoid the type of speed that you will have, that people will tend to scale those rocks if they are low. So that's a secondary reason, because in front of that we will also have safety barriers, but those are cushioning accidents, so you don't have rigid impact. But we have those rocks to serve mainly the protection against surges and excess weather, which we are getting more and more of that. I recall since we have designed this, we have had, I think, 4 or 5 category 5 hurricanes in one season. So that's for the height of the rocks. I'm not sure. I am one of those who enjoy the environment very much and like to look at sea, but we also need to ensure that commuters, drivers keep their eyes on the road. And I'll get to the point where we have to look at beautification. And one of the 7 points I mentioned was for us to really design in such a way. To the seaside, I think we have in excess of 12 to 15 feet that will allow us to have a lay-by. And we have indicated that on top of those rocks, we could design a boardwalk with access points that you could get to have a lookout, not while you're driving, but you could stop, enjoy the beautification, the relaxation that you would have in Old Road Bay. And that is extended to include section wrapping around Spratnet. And that design, I assure the minister, we did not include in this phase of the work, but it was contemplated, and we will rapidly bring that to the level that it can be assessed as another phase to the project. I think I will also extend the statement Mr. Gilbert was making about drainage to include some elements of the existing road that crosses there, and you would have some drainage coming off existing building. And up, I think 2 or 3 days ago, we were looking at putting in the drain that picks up all that water just about Spratnet entrance there, and the houses along there, and all that is captured and properly drained away with suitable capacity to handle the flow. I think that's about what I could add at this point.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Lee. We have come now to the end. We are going to wrap up at this point in time. As a ministry, of course, we recognize that improvement in infrastructure will definitely boost our economy and improve safety. And that is the mandate, the mission under which we would have operated. We understand, of course, that we are living in COVID times. We have had very limited resources, but as a ministry, we would have sat and we would have planned, and we are going to do whatever we can to ensure that at least as we make a conscientious effort to transform the landscape of St. Kitts and Nevis, we do so for the betterment of everyone. I'm going to allow at this point in time the water service the assistant engineer for water services, Mr. Ryan Phillip, to give his final closing remarks, then Mr. Gilbert, and then the minister will wrap up tonight's discussion. We want to say thanks to the public for engaging us in a very healthy and rich discussion. We want to thank you for the support of confidence that you would have echoed tonight, and we want to give the commitment that we will do whatever we can to make sure that we satisfy the general public. Thank you so very much again, Mr. Phillip.
Yes, and once again, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister Richards for inviting me to speak on this panel. I always look forward to engaging with the public and giving updates on ongoing projects. I also would like to say that I will sleep a little better tonight knowing that there are so many persons that appreciate the services that we provide, because it's not often that we hear praises for the water department. Persons normally only remember us when they don't have any water. So I'm very happy to hear that there are persons that appreciate us. I also have an open door policy for anybody really. So if there's anyone in the public that has a burning question or a concern that they would want us to rectify, you can always come into my office and have a chat with me. And once again, thanks so much for having me.
I want to say thanks to the organizers and the Honorable Minister for inviting me here tonight to be on this panel. I think that I appreciate the fact to come and to share with the public and to hear from the public exactly what are your concerns when it comes to infrastructure in St. Kitts and Nevis. And as we only highlighted a few projects, in particular the Island Main Road, Old Road Bay, and we looked at Sandy Point because that is the area in which the activities for the Island Main Road, but yet we will have other projects coming on stream this year. We have other projects which are currently on the way, which we will deal with at a later date. And I think that Public Works Department will be on the radio working for you next week, Wednesday. So we'll highlight and we'll discuss a number of the other projects which we are involved in. So I want to say thanks again for affording me the opportunity to come and share with the general public tonight as to what is happening in infrastructure within the Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Just before the minister comes, we are going to have closing statements from Mr. Lee.
Thank you again, Chair. The most important element of my closing statement will be showing a high regard for the tolerance of the people we interface with. I think they're very patient. I've worked in other islands, and in particular my own, and people sometimes are not showing the level of tolerance that I have seen here. And I am well aware of the frustration and the inconveniences that the work we do will have on the day-to-day lives of people. Also, I will also want to emphasize the forward thinking of the ministry in charge and the government of St. Kitts in looking down the road, looking at the growth in the demand for greater and better infrastructure. And I think the implementation is very timely. The quality and the degradation that we found and progressively over the years compared to other islands in the Caribbean, I think St. Kitts and its government has hit the right note, and the investment made today will be the reward down the road, and I don't see that to be a long time in coming. It's going to be very short in coming, and investors will see the value in it, and in the long run, I think the people will be compensated for their patience. I think collectively, it's a good approach. It's an excellent approach. And again, I wish to thank those who we have inconvenienced for their patience. And I did not hear this evening the type of disgruntled comment, but rather the congratulation of the approach despite the inconvenience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Lee. And we are now going to have the Minister give his closing remarks. Minister Richards.
In closing, I express my gratitude to all of the persons who would have viewed this virtual town hall meeting this evening, to all those who took the opportunity to call in, to give advice, to give commendations, to ask questions, and perhaps also to find out which direction the Ministry of Public Infrastructure is going with regards to a number of projects here in St. Kitts. I also express my gratitude to the staff of the Public Infrastructure Ministry. I am not a technician. I am not a technical person. My background is in business management and accounting, and therefore it means that to a large extent I have to depend on the technical persons for guidance and also for carrying out the different programs and policies of the government. The staff continues to do an excellent job, as has been evidenced by a number of callers this evening. Therefore, they must be commended, and so tonight I take the opportunity to publicly do so. I also say thanks to the staff here at ZIZ for accommodating us on a short notice. As I said in my opening remarks, this was intended to be a town hall meeting in the town of Sandy Point last evening, but because of circumstances, we had to cancel that meeting. Upon making contact with ZIZ, ZIZ indicated that it is willing to host us this evening, and as you can see, that has been made very possible. I also wish to extend gratitude to a number of persons who are not with us this evening, but who would have contributed in significant ways to the hosting of this program this evening. I refer to persons both within and outside of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. There are some persons who would have helped to organize this virtual town hall meeting from the ministry itself, and there are a number of other persons who would have assisted in terms of ensuring that the meeting is well advertised so that persons were able to be aware of it, and so they have been able to view it and to call in and to speak to the many issues. Public infrastructure, the first word is public. It therefore means that the infrastructure that we are referring to, it is infrastructure being utilized by the public. We therefore recognize that our mandate is to serve the public. It is not about us. And that is what we set about to do within this particular ministry. The public is key to us. The public is perhaps the largest stakeholder group that the ministry must recognize, because whatever it is we are doing it in the interest of serving the public. I therefore again say thanks to the public for showing the appreciation, for bearing with us, for letting us know when we are doing things right, and for letting us know when we are doing things wrong, and for giving us your suggestions. We continue to look forward to that interaction with the public. We are here to serve you, and we give you our commitment to continue to serve you. As I end, and I would have spoken about the public, we're here to serve the public. Everything that we are doing is aimed at serving the public, giving the public better and improved infrastructure. The government is able to do so because the government is able to generate revenue. If you look at the Island Main Road resurfacing project and Old Road Bay, you're speaking about over $100 million being spent between those two particular projects. It is a significant investment in the people. Our people can only continue to enjoy these investments if we have a healthy population. I therefore want to say to the listening public that COVID-19 is still very much a reality. We want for you to be able to enjoy all of the different projects that we have implemented and will be implementing. Your chances of doing so will be very much improved if you become vaccinated. I encourage each person who isn't vaccinated as yet to do so as soon as possible. We still have vaccines available. We're still at just about 40-something% of the 70% herd immunity that we are looking at. You would have heard yesterday that we have a new case here in the Federation, someone who has been out in the public. It means that there's a possibility of community spread. It means that there is a number of persons who possibly were exposed to COVID-19. Today we had the NIAC briefing. The CMO indicated that over 100 persons have been tested. The results are still being awaited. If we have any positive test results, it means that we will have to be testing other persons who those persons would have come into contact with. The vaccine has, I think, an 86% or so efficacy after you would have taken the first shot, the second shot, in terms of preventing you from getting COVID-19, 100% when it comes to preventing death, and a very high percentage in terms of serious illness. If you look at India, within the last couple of weeks, you have had persons who have had to be buried or cremated on the streets there. Our healthcare system certainly isn't as robust as that of India. The AstraZeneca vaccine that we're using here was actually developed in India. And India got to a point whereby it needed just about all of the vaccines it had manufactured. Again, I am appealing to you to take your health seriously. You aren't vaccinating for me. You aren't vaccinating for the government. You're doing it for your own good, for your own health. Some of you have children living in your homes. They cannot be vaccinated. And so you need to protect those children. You have elderly persons who live in your homes. Some of those persons cannot be vaccinated. Again, do it to protect those persons. If you love yourself and if you love those who you care for, I would say to you, think carefully about it and take the vaccine. If not, we do not know the possibility of you contracted COVID and whether or not you may survive COVID-19. Some persons perhaps who called in this evening may not have been vaccinated, but speaking to the beautiful benefits that thus far you have received as a result of the investment the government is making in the public infrastructure. Put yourself in a position to be able to further enjoy the benefits of all of the developments here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.